Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 109. We're living in a world right now where it is becoming more and more apparent that in order for the world to heal, we need to heal as individuals. And if you've listened to the previous two episodes of the podcast, you already know that I am doing a healing series and bringing on some very special guests, people that are near and dear to my heart, who so generously are willing to openly share their healing journeys with all of us. And in this episode, my guest has a story to share that will move you, perhaps to tears, perhaps to feeling inspired to do the thing you've always wanted to do, perhaps to enforcing a knowing that anything is possible. Most likely, though, it will be all of the above. Eric is my soul brother, whom I've had the honor of knowing for billions of years, and on this plane for only one short year. So without giving too much away, I'm going to allow Eric to share his incredible story. So stay tuned. Hello, fire goddesses. Welcome to the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am a prosperity coach for the newly awakened or awake curious, driven overachiever, and overdoer. After running a successful acupuncture practice in Boston for 12 years, I decided to hang my hat by closing the practice and pursue what it is that I'm really meant to do in this world, and that is to serve humanity online on a global scale. Using my background in Chinese medicine, along with the brain science of habits, spirituality, and divine masculine and feminine energy balance, I am here to help you not just understand, but know how powerful you are and that you are the person who is responsible for having the finances, inner peace, radiant health, and energy, aka the fire, in your life that you've always desired. My intention with this podcast is to serve humanity, no matter what gender you identify as, to help bring out the divine feminine goddess in each and every one of you. As you probably are already aware, the world is changing and is begging for the goddess to come out in each and every one of you. So, fire goddesses, stay tuned. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. My name is Angela Noel. I am the host of the podcast, and we are continuing with the healing series. And I have a very, very exciting, another amazing guest, another soul brother. He has quite a story to share from what I know about him. So I'm really excited to share this episode where Eric shares his story. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Eric Karnezis. Hi, Eric. How are you?
Hello. Thank you for having me. My beautiful soul sister across the table from me now. So it's a pleasure and honor to be here, and I'm excited to get chatting.
It's an honor to have you here, and I can't wait to chat with you about your story.
And I hope my baby Steele doesn't bother us in this interview. He's sitting here staring at me now, and he may bark and scratch, but that will just be him saying hello to everybody that's around listening. So
Steele is a love, so no worries. I have Ayla here, and she barks occasionally too, so it will just make the episode more exciting.
Yes.
So Eric, you have, from the little that I know from your story, you have quite a story. And as you know, we're talking about healing in this series, and I'm bringing on a few guests for them to share their story. So I would love, first of all, if you could just introduce yourself any way that you would like to, any way that feels right, and tell the audience who you are and, if you want, what you do, and then we'll go right in.
Okay. Well, I'm Eric, a cosmic soul child, Toltec warrior, infinite being living in this meat suit right now, just enjoying life. I have, I do have an interesting story, and to really sum it up, I would just say that I started off homeless and confused and emotionally trapped, and am currently a multi-millionaire free flying bird that loves life. And I'll say the healing process is a lot like the process to success. There's levels to it, and no matter how much levels we break through, there's always more levels above us, and more to do. And so I've really gotten to just love the journey and just take it for what it is and not be hard on myself and just go with the flow, baby, you know?
Beautiful introduction. And
Thank
I
you.
feel like your story is going to inspire so many people who have either been through some kind of major healing, and just to see how, I mean, even personally, just to witness your journey and to see where you are now, and just to come right out and say, I love my life. You said that off camera before we started.
Mhm.
So going back to, what you said when we started about being homeless, does that sound like a good place to start for you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good place. That's not where it all started for me, but that is a good place to start.
You
That was
can,
definitely rock bottom for me.
okay, you can start wherever you'd like, Eric.
No, that's a good spot. It was because that's really where, the rubber meets the pavement, as far as going through my emotional, stages, insecurity. You're sitting there, and so I will preface this by stating that when I was homeless, I was in middle school. Okay, so if that changes the vision in your mind of me being homeless, it wasn't me, in my 20s or 30s sleeping on the sidewalk. Right, I was a little kid. I didn't go to seventh and eighth grade because during those 2 years, those are the 2 years that I was homeless. And what really catapulted that was a series of unfortunate events that all sort of pinged me into different levels of distrust and disillusionment and insecurity and fear. And so, these different sections of my life that got me there. I've had my parents went to prison, so that's how it started. So the door was kicked into our house at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the DEA dragged us out to the streets. I wrote an amazing book about it called Golden Scissors that I just finished, and it launches soon. So,
Congratulations.
and it's a 3-part book, and I've only written the one part, but it's 80,000 words. It's like 300 pages. So there's a lot that I'll be skipping over just because we don't have time to talk 80,000 words. But um, that was when I first learned that my dad wasn't in the cattle business. Okay, so my whole life growing up, my dad was in the cattle business, and he literally explained drug dealing, and I didn't know what he was saying because he would buy cows when they were really skinny, and he'd get them big and fat, and then he'd sell them when they were worth more money, which is basically an illusion of buying some really good cocaine, turning that 1 kilo of coke into 2 or 3 kilos of coke, and then now you've tripled your money and you can sell it, stepping on the drug. So I'm like putting these pieces together in adulthood of just how funny these childhood conversations were. But it was a shocker because your parents are your heroes, and learning that they've been lying to you your whole life, it was eye opening for me. That you can't trust anybody, and you're always alone. Always, no matter who you're with, you're always alone, and you never really know anybody. You barely even know yourself half the time. And so, that's the mindset that I got into when I was, 11 or 12 years old, whatever age that was. Then we get into these foster systems where we're being the first foster family literally tried to molest me and my brother on multiple occasions to where we ran away. And there was only like a weird feeling. We had a weird vibe about this guy, but we Googled him. Doug Forehand. If you Google Doug Forehand, and the reason I say his name is because this scumbag, the world needs to know about people like this. If you Google Doug Forehand, you'll see that he is in prison for molesting like 31 kids from 1994 to 2012 or something. And he's a youth pastor at a church. He was using his position as a youth pastor to reel little kids in. And you have to understand that there's two types of people that want to work with kids, and unfortunately people like him are one of those types. And so, so now I'm like thrown into this weird world and there's this creepy things going on. So we run away, end up in another foster home. They starve us. Okay. We're eating, they would give us so the thing about the foster system that I'll kind of preface is that good people like us that want to help people, we don't usually adopt children, unfortunately. We're the ones that should, though. The people that adopt children are the ones that don't want to work but can't pay their rent without working, and they know that the government will give them, or the state will give them, X amount of dollars per child that they foster. And if they can get 4 kids in their house and they're getting $800 a month per kid, and they can spend as little amount of money as possible on those kids, then they have more money for themselves and for their vacations and their worthless life and the rims on their cars, right? So the next foster family that we went into really didn't want to spend money on us, didn't want to give us clothes or food to eat. So we would eat a grapefruit. That was like our allotment of food, was here's a grapefruit, eat it, cut it in half, eat it with a spoon. And if we were ever complaining about how hungry we were, they would dump a tablespoon of sugar on it to tell us to stop complaining, and so we, and then there was more to that household than just that. But once again, we're just learning now that it's a cold world, because as a kid, it's a warm world, and butterflies and lightning bugs are cute, and the warm dew in the night air is like this magical experience. And there's just like something that's so surreal about being a child that I have dreams about it, because I didn't get to experience it very long. But, so I'm in this process now. This is the whole thing of learning about how cold this world really is. So we run away from that house because we were just too hungry not to. And then another foster family had us committing crimes and doing all these weird things. And so anyway, at the end of like a 6-month period of just complete failures by the system, we just ran away and stopped letting social services come for us. And so we were sort of homeless by choice, I guess, because whenever, the CPS would come around the corner, and they were pretty aggressive, they'd come like 6 cars deep, skidding around the corner in their Ford Tauruses. And we would just hop fences and run until about 6 months go by, and they stopped coming for us. They gave up. And we were officially at that point just wards of the fort. But
how old were you then?
So that was 7th grade.
So you're like 11?
Yeah.
11, 12?
11, 12.
And also your brother is your twin.
Twin brother, so same age, just as confused as me, going through his own disillusionment. It was an emotional time. We cried a lot. I'll speak for myself. I cried a lot. And, and I was super sentimental, and maybe I still am, but I was super sentimental. I remember like 2 Christmases before this happened, my mom gave me a single by Rod Stewart, Have I Told You Lately? And it was a tape, and I played it that Christmas on my Walkman, and I was like, okay, this song fucking sucks. Like, cool. It went in a drawer. And it was so funny how powerful that song became after, when I had lost, and they were dead to me. I don't have a car or a telephone. It's not like I'm visiting them in jail. Like, they were dead to me. So here I am on the streets with nothing but this Walkman playing on repeat. Have I Told You Lately by Rod Stewart, just me crying like a just total total wreck. But there was also a lot of strength too. I wouldn't say that we were pathetic. We weren't moping around pathetically. We found places that we could sleep off bad weather. So there was a McDonald's across town with a playpen, and we would hop the fence, and Anthony would sleep in the balls, and I would crawl up to the second level, and there was like a little corner that didn't have windows, and I'd sleep in a little ball in the corner. But we both would freeze to death because the balls don't have insulation under them, because he's on a trampoline. If you remember the balls from the old playpens. So he'd get this cold draft coming up under him all night, but we'd have to hide because no one could find us. And then the part that I slept in was like a Venturi effect. It was like a wind tunnel. The crawl up section and then slide down created this wind tunnel. So I'm in there with this cold breeze just whistling through all night, and no blankets, no pillows. So we would suffer at night. We'd sometimes sleep like an hour, if that. We'd be walking around like zombies for a couple days, but eventually we mastered it. We found a garage that we could sleep in and not be found. So pretty interesting. Little household there. The garage didn't have a front door, and it had a built-in ladder in the way back with a little hole to the upper part of the garage that nobody utilized. And so we could just sneak it up this driveway and into this open garage and crawl up into the ceiling. And like we'd hear them wake up and start their car to go to work the next day. And like we'd be up there choking on fumes.
Did they ever find out that you were there?
No, we never got caught. No. We would either get up really, really early and leave and just roam the streets, or we'd wait for them to leave and then we'd sneak out, and we wouldn't come back until late at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an interesting time.
And how long were you and Anthony on the streets in total?
I mean, I'm 42 years old and I've been on my own ever since, right? So you could say for 30 years. Mm-hmm. But actual like homelessness on the streets, 2 years. Yeah, just under 2 years probably. Because it was all during 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah.
We ended up getting our own apartment in high school. And so we left Virginia, because if you try to get into high school without completing middle school in the same state, they're going to either put you in like some really low-end classes, or not let you in at all. But with social promotion, if you leave the state, on the high school, middle school level, you don't have transcripts like college.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no evidence to what you've done when you leave the state. Only the school system you are currently in knows what you've done. And so we ended up heading out to California and enrolled in a local high school, and they had no idea what we've accomplished or what we had done, and they let us in. And since we were wards of the court, we were considered adults. We could sign ourselves in and out, show up late if we wanted to. And we would have to, though, because sometimes it would take a whole day to pay rent, because we'd have to take 4 different buses across town. And, each bus, it's like an hour for each bus, because even if it's only a 20-minute route, you have to stop at the bus stop, wait for the bus to come, get on it. It drops you off at the next bus stop. Then you're waiting on the next bus to come. And really daisy chaining these buses across town was horrible experience. At least in the late 90s, it was a horrible experience. I feel like they're a little more efficient now. But yeah, we would have to sign ourselves out of school and take the whole day just to go drop off a rent check, come back. And so it's pretty fun experience, though, having your own place in high school. We got really popular really fast.
Oh yeah, I do remember you telling that story. Your place was the place to go.
Oh yeah.
For parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if we could just go back a little bit, and then I'm just curious, because I know that people are probably listening are curious. when you and Anthony were on the street on a day-to-day basis for 2 years, how did you nourish yourself? What did you guys do? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we nourished ourselves like kids would nourish themselves and not like responsible adults. And so, a lot of times we would just go to the local 7-Eleven and steal a Snickers bar or a payday because the peanuts would fill you up better. And a payday is like all peanuts. And so, sometimes I'd go a whole week just eating Snickers bars. And you're talking about, I was skinny for my age too. So, I mean, I was a little guy. I don't even know what I weighed, 75 pounds, soaking wet. I mean, a Snickers bar is all I really needed for the whole day. And so, you can't eat candy every day because your body starts to crave other things. And so another thing we would do if we were feeling real luxurious, we would go into the local Taco Bell. And this is back in the day when they would leave on top of the garbage cans by the door, they would have the 4 containers or the 3 containers with huge amounts of all of their hot sauces. You could get the Taco Bell mild sauce, the hot sauce, and the really hot sauce. And you didn't have to go and ask the girl behind the counter for it. You know what I mean? And so we'd walk into Taco Bell with no money. We'd grab a handful of hot sauces, and then we'd go to 7-Eleven and we would take a pack of raw hot dogs, and we would just sit out on the sidewalk and have hot dogs with Taco Bell sauce on them and just eat them raw right there. And that was like delicious to us. That was luxury. So there was 3 7-Elevens in our neighborhood, and just so that we wouldn't get caught, if you walk into 7-Eleven every single day for a year and you never buy anything, they're eventually going to catch you stealing, and so we'd rotate 7-Elevens, and we wwere so stressed out and so sad looking. People might have caught us and didn't even care. I mean, I remember times just because it's cold in Virginia, and without the proper nourishment or clothing, I mean, we would shiver, blue lips, and shivering just to a point. I literally have memories of thinking that my lower back was going to snap, that I was shivering so hard, I literally thought my back was going to break. And not being able to get a full night's sleep because of having no blankets and no pillows. And I don't know, there was a lot of sort of patheticness that I wore on my sleeve, I'd imagine. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I know if I owned a 7-Eleven and something like that walked in and took a candy bar, I'd probably just throw $1 in the register, let it go. And so maybe we were caught dozens of times and they let us go, or maybe we were just so good we never got caught. I don't know. Can't explain it, but we probably stole every day for the first year and a half. I will say it's not good to steal. Okay. I don't agree with that. And I'm not a thief now, obviously, but what helped us do it was that we were so young, that we were at an age where we were too young to legally have a job and work and earn money. So nobody would give us a work permit or let us work at that age. So you're telling me by law that I'm not allowed to work. The only thing I'm allowed to do is go get molested or starved or put to crimes. Mm-hmm. Right? So you know what? Go fuck yourself. I'm going to go ahead and do it my way. And I'm going to feed myself. And it's your fault, not mine. And just the chip on my shoulder got bigger with every shiver, and so it came to a point where we really just didn't care anymore. And it evolved. We got trapped in the rain one night, and we were really far away from anywhere that we knew of for shelter. And it's pouring rain in the winter in Virginia. It's 30 degrees out and we're soaking wet. And we thought we were going to die. And so we go and just out of pure desperation, we break into a garage that the window was on the side of the house covered by a tall bush. So we sneak behind this tall bush and the lock, I remember the locks from my old house. I've had to break into my old house as a kid. You know, you lock yourself out and you learn how to take a butter knife and like shimmy the lock. These old school locks that are super shimmyable. And I noticed it had the same lock. I had a little pocket knife. And so we shimmy it open and we broke into this garage and we slept that night, curled up on the concrete floor next to the car in there. And we made sure the next morning that, you know, we were up at like before the sun was up, and we got out of there before anybody woke up to catch us. And so now we've accidentally acquired a skill. So, you know, we now know how to burglarize. And so that skill came in handy down the road because now we're sick of stealing every day. We're sick of eating Snickers bars every day. We're sick of struggling and suffering. And we know that drug dealers can't call the cops on us. And we know who drug dealers are in our neighborhood. We lived in a very bad neighborhood. We lived in the projects, very low income. Everybody was committing crimes and doing things. And it was just, everybody knew who the drug dealers were. And we started stealing from drug dealers so that the cops would never be onto us. And so we would case out a house. You know, we had none of the time, and we'd go in and we'd grab, you know, a pound of weed, and we'd run off. And we didn't, you know, I knew a couple other drug dealers that were friends of my older brothers before all the shit hit the fan, and we would go find those guys and slang for pennies on the dollar. You know, I'd give them a pound of weed just for $100 to go get some food, and so we started doing that. That's how we saved up enough money to get an apartment for high school, though. And and we never considered it really burglary, and we never considered ourselves really criminals because, like, I mean, what are we talking about here? You know, these guys chose to be outside the law. These guys are selling dope and all these drugs and polluting the streets with all this nonsense. And if they want to live outside the law, then let's live out there. Let's do that. So I'm going to go into your house. I'm going to take your stuff. You can't call the cops on me. I'm free as a bird, you know, and nobody would suspect it was the two homeless 12-year-olds that are crying with their Walkmans. You know what I mean?
So Rod Stewart. Oh,
yeah. I love that song, though.
I love that song too. It reminds me of my grandmother.
Yeah, it's a really
well, thank you, Eric, for sharing that. And I know I'm going to actually, you said you wrote a book, and I know you wrote a book a while ago, right?
Yeah.
And that's coming out soon. So I want to make sure that the world gets that information on when they can purchase it. So I'll link any information you have in the show notes.
I'm going to launch it very soon here, maybe a month. I just haven't decided how I want to do it yet. And so that's kind of been what the big delay is. But I'm excited to share it with you when I do.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
And I think it's important also talking about all of this. You know, the healing part is the important part, you know, like, okay, so you got these kids, they're stealing and they're cold and they're crying, you know, and all that. And how do you go from there to being a serial founder? I've built and sold several businesses, you know, I'm living the dream. And I take care of my parents now, and like, you know, all that, and it all really starts inside, you know, with you, and when you're ready, and you have to do it your own path and in your own way. And so I think it's important to understand, you know, because so many people, like I hear people talk about it on podcasts and on YouTube and stuff like that about these steps that they take. And sometimes it's like, man, right on. And then sometimes it's like, yeah, that's not for me, you know? And so it is important to understand that there is a very individualized approach to healing. And my approach came from toughness. You know, one, I was the very, very beginning of it all. I was like crying on the sidewalk, and my best friend walks up and was like, hey, look at me. And this guy was a roughneck. His dad used to beat the hell out of him. And his dad was a Vietnam vet and with PTSD, severe. and he would just beat the crap out of this kid. This kid was tough as nails. And he stands me up from crying, and he's like, look at me. I look at him, and he just punches my lights out and starts giving me this lecture about, how you're a man now and the world isn't going to take care of you, and tears aren't going to solve anything. And it was really eye-opening for me because I realized that I had been crying for months and nothing was being solved. So I was like, you know what? You're right. The tears are definitely not solving anything at all. I'm not saying hold back your tears. What I'm saying is if all you're doing is crying, then you're just wasting that release, because once you're done crying and you've released all that, now you have this unique opportunity where you don't have to cry anymore because you just got it out of your system and you can do something about it, right? And so that's when I sort of got into my super masculine energy. And there's no, you guys can't see this on the video, but I'm sitting behind a divine feminine, divine masculine image, and it's two faces, but it's one person, and I think that I epitomize this divine masculine and feminine because I've lived on such degrees of each side of it. But I think I spent a lot of time in my masculine with this alpha male chip on my shoulder. I'm super tough. That helped me get through sort of a lot of the emotional stuff and work out my kinks with my emotions. But then what was happening is now I'm in pure survival mode, and I'm not letting anybody in. I've built concrete walls around me to mask all of the emotional stuff. And I'm not letting the teachers in at school. I'm not letting girls in that I'm in relationships with. I'm not letting my best friends in. I'm truly alone, truly, and during this process. And then I learned a whole lot from that, and it's such a long journey and a long story that it's hard to really sum up the whole experience. Yeah. Because it really took me longer to heal than I feel like a lot of people. I had a breakdown when I was 26. That would be my first shamanic death. Was 26. That's when I was finally making money for the first time. I started a business out of desperation, and it was just way more successful than I could have ever imagined. And so I bought a house, bought a car, bought all these toys, all these nice clothes. I'm dry cleaning. I'm taking my clothes out of plastic bags every morning, feeling just super, super legit. Hopping in my fancy car, smells like leather. And I couldn't get out of bed in the mornings. I was so depressed. I would hide under the covers and keep my eyes closed, because the amount of anxiety and tension and stress that I had, the only time that didn't exist was this little twilight window of right as I'm waking up in the morning. Like somehow you wash away all your stresses in dream space or something. And so I'd wake up in the morning and I would finally have a little bit of relief, and I'd be afraid to poke my head out from under the covers. And then I realized how lost. That's when things got really bad for me, because it was always money. When you're homeless and you're trapped and you can't eat and you can't afford anything, it's always money's going to solve everything. Money, 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 money. Finally started making money, and I realized it solved nothing. Like, I was an emotional wreck. I was completely withdrawn. I was severe depression, and I was a stranger even to myself, which was the worst part about it all. And that realization just sent me spiraling out of control. And I lost it. The anxiety was so strong that I thought I was going to die from it. And pills, popping, opioids, chasing the dragon all day long, and just, nothing was working, smoking weed all day. And that is when I sort of started down my spiritual path. That was when I was like, there's something out there that I'm supposed to do that's going to fix this. And it's not in these opioids, and it's not in this money. And, I talked to a guru at the time, Jimmy Johnson, the most beautiful soul that I've ever met. And just what a blessing to know a man like that. And I call him out of the blue. He's a friend of my parents from my childhood. Ponytail, cool dude, cowboy boots and a ponytail. He's just the OG. And he gets on the phone and he recommends, after a long talk, Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. And so I go to Barnes and Noble and I buy this Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, and I start reading it. And I read one chapter a day, and I make sure that whatever chapter I read, I made sure that happened in my life that day. So there was a chapter on a meditation. I went to a field, I did that meditation. He starts getting into being addicted to your pain body and not allowing yourself to go into it. So when I start feeling sorry for myself or feeling self-important, when I'm really the star of my own show and life is so hard for me, I would realize that's just my pain body trying to keep me down. And there was just a lot to that book that I could say saved my life. The thing is I've given 100 copies of that book away to 100 different people, and it didn't save their lives, right? So I'm pretty clear now that I saved my own life, that it was my own light and my own desire, and I was just ready at the time, and I did it my way, and that book happened to be my way. Randomly, Jimmy Johnson's recommendation happened to be my way. But that was the beginning of that, and that's really when things started to get better for me, and have been getting better every single day since.
Ooh. That's a beautiful story. And I wanted to ask you, because I feel like I remember you saying this in some conversation before, that even though, and correct me if I'm wrong, even though you were on the street, even though these things were happening to you, even as an 11-year-old, did you sense within your knowing, that there was something higher and better for you?
Always, every single night, we'd sit, and Anthony and I would sit and stare up at the stars and get energy from the moon. And I mean, it's just, we always knew. It's so hard to explain the knowing of a young boy, because adults have lost that.
Yeah.
But Anthony and I both were heavy in our knowing. And, even as kids growing up, we always gravitated towards the inspiring scenes in a movie of the Native Americans, and there's like an eagle flying by squawking or something, just some magical moment,
Yes,
and I've always really just resonated with that. And like the ninja movies and the fighting movies, it was always the training montages that got me, like on Kickboxer when he's in the jungle meditating underwater. And I don't know, like there was always like this spiritual deep essence that always called to me. And I grew up feral, so I was never indoctrinated. And so because of my early disillusionment and my non-indoctrinated experience growing up, I always saw through the bullshit. And I don't want to say, for the people who are listening, that your beliefs are bullshit. I don't want to say that. I think that if you are really into the Bible, or you're really into Judaism, or whatever you're into, that's part of what I was saying earlier about we heal our own way, right? But healing is the same result, just because the path is different. And there's so much positive stuff in those indoctrinations that I do believe that they're great for people. Me, as a feral being, there's no other option for me other than spirituality. You're not going to tame a lion that you just pick up in the safari of Africa. Like, he's not going to be a house cat. And I don't think it's possible for me to ever be a house cat. And spirituality gives me that raw, gritty nature to be in tune with myself, understand my own light being, understand my own emotions and feelings, and do everything the way I'm supposed to. And the answers are so clear in that perspective. And I don't have to read a book and talk about a story that has sacrifices and blood oaths and children being sacrificed, not just animals, and all these weird things happening. Like, I don't have to play a part in any of that. I don't have to agree or be anything there. The closest thing I have to sacrifice is some Santeria beliefs, but that's also spiritual in my eyes. So
Yeah, and I feel like spirituality, I mean, I heard you describe yourself as feral more than once. Well, first of all, this is a two-part question. Do you still consider yourself feral? And
I
two,
mean, I'm in my house. I've got my dishes and my cookware, and I've got a chili pad on my mattress upstairs, and my beautiful golden doodle who just got groomed yesterday, and we cruise around in only the finest Italian leather cars. I think that physically I'm domesticated. I like air conditioning in the summer. I like, I don't really speed on the freeway because I would rather not talk to a cop. And I just do things kind of my own way in the quietest way possible. And I'm a hermit. I like to be home. I think physically I could say there's a domestication there. I think that mentally, emotionally, and everything internally, no fucking way. Absolutely not. I'm as free as a bird. And not connected to any of it. I can lose it all. I can gain it all. I'm going to do it my way every time. I'm headstrong on that, and that's what works for me, though. That's what works for me.
yeah.
And so, if somebody else, it works for them to take instruction, then that's for you. And I don't knock it. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think what I respect is healing, and I respect self-confidence. And whatever direction you take to get it doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't. Just don't bring it to me. I don't want you to try to convince me your beliefs. But I don't want you to believe mine either. So.
And, if we could just, because I feel like there's just so many parts to your story that we could really unpack, but I know we're running out of time. If you could if the people that are listening who are wondering, okay, how did this guy do it? Because we touched upon spirituality and we talked about your inner knowing and just this series of events that led you to reading A New Earth, to your present life today. Because part of the human condition, right, is having emotions and having our ups and downs or shamanic deaths or ego deaths or whatever you want to call it. How do you navigate that part of your life every day? Like, what are some tools that you can share with the audience that they could apply right away to help them self-elevate so that they can be at peace and in love with their life, no matter what their circumstances? Because your story it's incredible. And I think a lot of people are going to be inspired by that. And they're going to want to know, what does Eric do on a day-to-day basis to maintain that?
That's a great question. I think compartmentalizing is going to be important. I'll give you a quick story. I know we're running out of time. When I first started trying to make something of myself, I had to be homeless when I was in middle school, and I had to be poor in high school because I wanted my education and I didn't have time to work as much as I would have liked. And I was just happy to pay rent and sleep on the floor in an empty apartment, and so, but when I finally started to try, I end up doing this commission only job where I couldn't get a job from anybody. The one guy that hired me because he didn't have to pay me. I was like, you know what, you can just go out and you can close some deals and I'll just pay you on everything you close. And so I'm driving to an appointment. I have this really, really old Cadillac that I got super cheap. And I'm driving this old Cadillac with real bad gas mileage to this meeting with a person to talk to them about a business thing where I can make some money. And I got rent's not paid. I got no food in the fridge. I'm hungry. I'm in this car. My best friend had just died, and he's not the first. That's one thing about growing up the way I did, is that we get really close with a lot of people who have a lot of, bad habits. And so I've lost a couple really amazing friends that I think about every day. This guy just died from an overdose. And I'm driving to this appointment and my gas light's on. And the old Cadillac, they used to count down your mileage. And it was like, so my car wasn't just on empty. It was like, I had to drive 5 miles to this meeting and my car was like, you're going to run out of gas in 0 miles. Like I was on empty. And so I pull over to this gas station and I have no money. I go into my ashtray. There's 36 cents in there. There's a quarter, a dime, and a penny. And so I pull it out and I go into the gas station and I put 36 cents in the gas tank. It's just enough gas to get me to this appointment. And if I can close this deal and make some money, then I'll live to see another day. And if I don't close the deal, my life's over. And I'm just so distraught about my best friend dying. I'm crying my whole way to the appointment. I'm crying because my friend's gone. The world is black and white to me now. He was a very special friend. And, I'm crying because I have no money in the gas tank. And and my life is just so fucking pathetic. And I'm just crying like people at red lights were probably like, damn, this guy's losing it. I drive to this appointment. I cry all the way up to the front door of this business. And I literally I grab the handle to open this door and I wipe the tears from my eyes. And when I open the door to walk in, I poke my chest out. I put my chin up. I put a smile on my face. Hey, I'm Eric. I'm here to talk to you about your merchant account. And I signed that deal and I made that commission. And I went back out to my car and I cried some more. And this time it was a crying from joy that the pressure was gone, that I just made some money, and it was a beautiful feeling. And so I think what I would like to use that story to summarize would be the compartmentalizing it. I allowed myself to feel sad for losing my best friend. I allowed myself to sort of feel sorry for myself, in that time. And but that was when there was a time for it. When I was alone in my car and I had a time for it. But when it was time to do something to fix my life, I wiped the tears and I put my chin up and I did something to fix my life. And so, what happens is the more things you practice, the easier they are to accomplish over and over and over. And so, I would find more opportunities to pretend to not be so sad. And more opportunities. And then because you're in sales now, you have to talk to people. Now I'm getting more social. I'm not in my box so much. Now I'm talking to more people in real life, more friends of mine and, stuff like that. And so it just becomes this game you play where you try to create more gratitude moments than sad moments. And you don't have to trick yourself. Because if you're trying to convince yourself there's some gratitude that you don't have, you're just really convincing yourself that there's nothing to be grateful for. Like you're doing the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. And so, you just get determined on what you want to do. And when the time is there to do it, you don't let the other bullshit get in your way. So, that's like how I got from homelessness to where I am now, and even to this day, I still have battles. Like I said earlier, I'm 42 years old. One of my friends I grew up with on the streets, me and him were supposed to raise kids together. He's the most beautiful soul on the planet. He literally just 2 years ago, he gets pulled over. He was selling crack. He gets pulled over and he swallows the crack like they do on TV because it was all in balloons. Oh. And the balloons ruptured. And he dies of an overdose in the holding tank of a cell, like this beautiful soul. Mm-hmm. And so here I am, for me, I'm just, I'm this highly successful, wealthy guy that lives every dream I ever had as a kid. I got the Lamborghini, I've got the house, I've got, everything I wanted. And this other kid in the same position as me died of an overdose in a jail cell because he didn't want to get caught selling crack cocaine. And, And I cried for weeks over that because he was just such a special human being, and he just deserved a better mission, you know. And I don't know, it was rough, but so even now, I still battle with that. But that same day I found that news out, I had business meetings, I had things to accomplish, I had people who rely on me, employees and associates, and so I just let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my dog's barking. I'm sorry, because my next appointment has just arrived apparently. So.
All right. Well, Eric.
Sorry.
No worries. I feel like we could chat forever, but I want to be mindful of the time. Thank you so much for your time today. You are a beautiful light being, and I so appreciate you. And obviously, you were meant to be here to tell your story and share your message with the world.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. You know, I love you very much. It's really just good to see you. And we could do a podcast episode every day if we get an excuse to Zoom each other. And I am sorry about Steel barking at these people, but you know, but yeah, I had a great time chatting, and I hope that somebody learned something from this. I don't know. You know, we freestyled this talk. We didn't plan it or write anything down. This was a freestyle, and because of that, I know that there's something that was said that's going to really help somebody.
100%. Yeah. So if there's somebody, I know you have a presence on social media. Would you like me to put that on in the show notes? Do you want to tell people right now how they can?
Yeah, it's Eric _Karnezis. It's my first and last name with an underscore. And that would be the best way to find out when I launch the book, because I'll probably talk about it. I only post once or twice a year. It's not the most exciting page, but I do post stories and I do talk. And so I'd love to connect with anybody on there. So yeah, 100%.
Lovely, brother. Thank you so much. Mucho amor. I love you. I'll see you soon.
I love you very much. I'll see you next week.
All right. I know. Oh my God.
So exciting. All right. Bye.
Take care, brother. Bye-bye. Hi, this is Angela Noel, and thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you have found value in listening to this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could kindly share this podcast with those you care about. Please help me spread the word of empowerment and possibility and expansion by sharing this podcast. Or you could also leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Remember to follow me on Instagram at I am Angela Noel, or you could go to my website at www.angelanoelinternational.com to learn more about my work and to find out how you can work with me. Thank you very much.